Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into a pretty radical idea, one that could totally flip global manufacturing on its head. We're talking about fairness, about the real value of the stuff we buy, and what a worker actually deserves to be paid for making it.
So let's just start with a simple question. Think about a pair of sneakers. They can easily sell for, what, $150, right? But have you ever stopped to think about what the person who actually made them earned? That gap, the one between the price tag and the worker's wage, well, that's at the very heart of a massive ethical problem that's pretty much hidden in all of our shopping bags.
And here's the tough reality. The success of so many of these giant global brands, it's literally built on a system of huge wage gaps. We're talking about millions of workers in the textile, garment, and footwear industries. They're out there producing goods worth billions and billions of dollars, but they're often just scraping by on minimal pay, sometimes in really terrible working conditions.
Okay, so to really get why this happens, we've got to look at the very system that's supposed to protect these workers, the minimum wage. But, and this is the crazy part, as we're about to see, it often does the complete opposite. It actually creates this race to the bottom. And in that race, the workers are always the ones who lose.
You see, the current system is all about something called a floor wage. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the absolute bare minimum you need to survive. And a lot of governments use this as a tool, to attract foreign companies. But a living wage, well, that's a completely different animal. That's about dignity. It's not having enough to support your family, to get health care, to actually live a decent life.
And this competition, this is what creates that race to the bottom we just talked about. I mean, you have entire countries trying to one-up each other by offering the cheapest possible labor. And what happens? It just pushes wages down for everybody. The whole goal is to get those big brands to set up shop, but the end result is that worker pay is kept artificially, and I mean structurally, low.
And honestly, this is probably the biggest, most glaring flaw in the whole system. A worker's pay is tied to how poor their local area is, not to the massive global value of the product they're creating. So all that real value they add, it just gets shipped overseas, and they're left with just enough to scrape by.
So yeah, the system is clearly broken. The big question is, what's the fix? Well, there's a really simple but incredibly powerful idea that's starting to get some traction, and it could change, well, everything.
And the idea is this. It's so simple you can say it in one sentence. Same brand, same work, same pay. Think about it. If you're stitching a sneaker for a huge global brand in, say, Vietnam, you should earn the same as someone doing the exact same job for the exact same brand in Brazil. Your pay should be tied to the brand's global value, not to your zip code.
Okay, so let's break down why this idea actually works. It's not just some nice thought. It's built on three really powerful pillars that are not just ethical, they also make a ton of economic sense.
All right, pillar number one, economic capacity. Let's be clear, we're not talking about small mom-and-pop shops here. We're talking about global giants with profits in the billions. Their ability to pay a real living wage just completely dwarfs that of the local factories. To put it simply, they can absolutely afford it.
And get this part is incredible. Studies have actually shown that paying every single worker in the supply chain a living wage, it would only raise the final price of a product by about 1 to 3%. Just a tiny change that the brands could easily absorb, but for the workers, it would be absolutely life-changing.
Pillar number two is all about control. Now, brands will often claim they're just buyers, right? But in reality, they have this deep, almost total control over their suppliers. They're the ones who dictate the price they'll pay the factory. And for that factory to meet that super low price, well, they have to cut costs somewhere. And what's the first and easiest thing to cut? It's always labor. It's that direct pressure that keeps wages so low.
And that brings us to the third, and maybe the most game-changing pillar, global brand value. I mean, think about it. A $150 shoe isn't priced that high because of the amazing factory it was made in. No way. It's because of the logos stitched on its side. The brand's value is global. So doesn't it make sense that the value a worker adds to that brand should be the same no matter where they are in the world?
So let's imagine for a second, what would actually happen if this idea were put into practice? I'll tell you, it wouldn't just be some minor tweak. It would be a seismic shift in how the entire global manufacturing system works. Yeah, the whole way we think about this would have to change. Right now, fair wages are kind of treated as an optional charity, something for the corporate social responsibility report. But this new way, it frames fair pay as a core economic and ethical duty. We're not just talking about avoiding violations anymore. We're talking about real justice and fairness.
And the impact? It would be absolutely massive. All of a sudden, labor unions could bargain on a global scale. Brands would finally have to take real responsibility for the wages paid to make their products. And maybe best of all, factories would have to compete on things like quality and efficiency, not on who can exploit their workers the most.
Okay, but let's be realistic here for a second. An idea this revolutionary, well, it's definitely going to face some serious pushback. The path to making this a reality is not going to be an easy one, not by a long shot.
You can bet we're going to see a lot of pushback from the brands that are profiting from the way things are now, and governments that have built their economies around offering cheap labor. They'll probably fight it too. And on top of all that, just the logistics of making this work all over the world. Wow, it's incredibly complicated.
But it all comes down to this one powerful, lingering question. We all accept that a brand's logo has the same value whether you see it in New York or in Jakarta. So, why shouldn't its responsibility to the people creating that value be global too? It's a real challenge, not just to the companies, but to all of us. A challenge to how we think about the products we buy, and maybe even the kind of world we want to live in.